Welcome to our December, last one of the year, Autauga County Board of Education meeting. Let the minutes reflect that all school board members are present. Please stand, and we'll have Billy Holland lead us in an invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's bow our heads. God, just thank you for bringing us here tonight. Thank you for our school system. Thank you for our students, teachers, administrators, our parents. As a board, please give us wisdom tonight. Please give us guidance on decisions that we'll be making. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Board members, you have received the agenda for the meeting. May I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion to approve.
A second?
Second.
All of those in favor of approving the agenda, please raise your hand. Right hand.
Thank you, Dr. Trish.
Mr. Whitford.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so the first item on the agenda tonight, I'm very excited to have Mr. Strock and some students from Billingsley here that's going to talk about a new piece of educational technology that'll give secondary students at Billingsley School an opportunity to hone their skills in the agri-science and medical fields. This time, I would like to ask Mr. Logan Strock, agri-science teacher at Billingsley School, to come forward. Bring as many participants as you want with you, Mr. Strock. Come on up, tell us all about it. Sure. I told a couple of them they had to give a speech, and they
They left. No. Just keep, yeah.
So through the Autauga Education Foundation, we received a grant in the amount of $5,000 to purchase a bovine injection simulator. And what that allows students to do is to practice agricultural skills in the classroom. So students are able to apply ear notches, ear tags, simulate injections in the constraints of the classroom. Once we eventually get our applied science facility there at Billingsley, it'll be a lot easier to demonstrate those skills in person. But in the meantime, this provides more than a theoretical understanding kind of the procedure and how that operates. So that's it.
That's straightforward and how do you expect that new piece of equipment to really help more than anything? Like, what are you guys looking forward to?
I'm definitely looking forward to the fact that although we are in a very, rural community,
Yeah.
A lot of these people, including myself before I started showing, had never seen cattle in real life, much less any farm animal. So having the simulation is just a great way to get those kids who were like me, had never seen livestock, never worked with livestock, to get in there and learn these things they would have never learned otherwise. So I think it's a great teaching opportunity.
Wow.
Very good.
Nailed that one, didn't
Well
you?
said.
Guys, we appreciate you guys. Mr. Strock, can't say enough good things
Thank
about
you.
what you're doing at the ag program at Billingsley. And hopefully, we were joking about on the way in, we're very close to the project for the ag livestock lab that's going out to bid. We're getting very close with all that. So a lot of great things going with your program. We appreciate what you're doing, and
Thank you.
And we appreciate what y'all do. So
Yep.
thank you.
Absolutely. Thank y'all. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you to the Education Foundation for the
He said
funding.
he was going to take 30 minutes.
I'm sorry to disappoint.
All right, second item on the agenda for receiving information. At this time, I would like to ask our Director of Elementary Education, Ms. Holly McNider, and our Director of Secondary Education, Dr. Antoine Marsh, to come forward. Board members, they're going to give you a strategic plan update. As you know, y'all don't have to leave, y'all can stay if you want. They're going to give you a good update in terms of what our school's made with the report card, data as you may see as they come up, and get ready to rock and roll. Thank y'all for doing this.
Well, hopefully I can use public speaking skills as I actually learned in the FFA program at
right.
Marbury High
Aw.
School. So I hope I can speak as well as that young lady just did. So thank you for having us. I'll go ahead and get us started. Like Mr. Woodfin mentioned, as you know, we developed a strategic plan right after you guys came on board. And So this is an update as far as concerning the academic advancement area of the strategic plan. So Dr. Marsh and I will kind of bounce back and forth a little bit, and of course, if you have any questions along the way, you just let us know, okay? All right, let me see if I can get this. Okay, like I said, we're going to be focusing on the priority area of academic advancement. So I'd like to start with this first slide, and the reason we chose academic growth to target first in our presentation is because we all know, or should know, that academic growth is definitely heard a principal say it just a couple days ago, the best way I've ever heard it was academic growth is the pathway to proficiency. So the state recognizes that when the calculations for the state report card comes along. You actually get more points in this area when you have students that fall into those level 3 and level 4. So as you know, according to our strategic plan, I'm just going to step over here for just a second. It's the teacher in me, but I'm not going to touch the board. So this was our baseline, and when we wrote our strategic plan for 21-22, so we actually presented this exact same information to you guys around this time last year when we received the state report cards in 22-23. Our strategic goal was to maintain 90 academic growth, and then in 23-24 we set the same scale, and you can see that we hit well above the goal in the 99.4%. So we will discuss some schools individually as we move along the presentation, but I think it's very important to highlight that as a district we moved 99% of our students, and that's a lot to be said. And I want to make sure that we give credit where credit's due, and I want to start with our teachers and our dedicated staff that is throughout this entire district. No matter what school you go into, that's what you're going to see, our teachers making a difference. A couple of other things that I feel like have made a huge impact is that we've become a data-driven district. I can speak across, you guys know that I led as the pre-K-12 director for a little while. Thankfully, Dr. Marsh has come on board, and I just feel like this is going to be a game changer for us, and to be able to work as partners as we help move our school district forward. But I do want to say that also some of the things that have certainly impacted this academic growth would be the consistency that you see through our district now when it comes to our pacing guides and the expectations when it comes to curriculum. And also just things like after-school tutoring, our summer learning camps, our instructional coaches at the elementary level have just made a great impact along the way. So we're very proud of that slide. So I'm going to grab it. All right, so then, like I said, the pathway to academic achievement is through academic growth. And now that we hit 23-24 data was a 67.4, and we exceeded that goal at 70%. So we were able to see 70% of within the academic. And please remember that this is all students across the district. Sorry, I'm going to thumb through this and make sure I cover everything. And so again, I just want to say that some of the impacts we feel that things that impacted our academic achievement is continuing that data-driven instruction, making sure that we have clear communication and collaboration with all stakeholders. Last year, you guys know that the Curriculum and Instruction Department implemented academic teams, and that's where we bring those teachers together, and they help give us feedback from the schools, and they help us tweak our pacing and all of our curriculum information that is shared throughout the district. And so that will be kicking off very soon as well. Also, strategic and explicit instruction. And again, I just want to keep going back to the great teachers within our district that have certainly moved, and this is just a display of their hard work. And I also want to do a shout out to the parents who support our schools as well. They certainly impact this. Some of the barriers that we still see that certainly impact our academic achievement, of course, chronic absenteeism, but I will be moving into that and have some really good news with that, but that continues to still be a challenge for our schools. If kids aren't at school, we can't teach them. And so I think we're beginning to help our community understand the importance of being at school all day, every day. And so you'll certainly see some gains within our presentation when it comes to absenteeism. We also experience transient students coming in and out, and so that certainly gives an impact on your data, when you are getting them from another district, and much less if they are moving, if they've been through lots of different schools, that certainly impacts a student's achievement levels. One of the things that we recognized last year that has been kind of a big rock for me is that MTSS piece. And so we've really gone in full force with MTSS, making sure that we're not just doing a double dip with those students who qualify for those services, but making sure we get those tier 2 and tier 3 kids. The goal is to close the learning gap before they end up in special education. And so we are building more consistency within our curriculum and our intervention programs and things like that. And so we hope that will make another huge impact on the academic achievement in the upcoming year. So one of the goals that is also built into the strategic plan is the total academic achievement for students with disabilities. So this was one measurable goal that we did fall short. You can see that we did the same last year. We ended up with a 28.4. This year was a 32.5. And, well, that's kind of weird, isn't it? That should be the other way. We're actually above the goal just a little bit. I apologize for that error. But, isn't that weird how I did that? But anyway, so I do want to speak a little bit just for a moment about the achievement for our students with disabilities. While we continue to close that gap, I do want to say that we had some schools, and we will mention those as we go through each school's report card, that actually had 100% growth with students with disabilities. And, we've just got to figure out what those schools are doing well and take them to our other schools and make sure they're doing the same thing. Also want to just highlight the changes that Mr. Woodfin recommended and you guys agreed to the, adding some boots on the ground, so to speak, through our special education department. These numbers, I want you to remember, these are numbers from last spring. And so while you're seeing this tonight, it was released to the public, I don't know, a month or so ago. We actually received this information in June. And so we take that raw data and we drill it down, and those principals, I think Mr. Woodfin shared with you guys some predictions back in late summer. We made predictions of what we thought the report cards would be, and the principals did an excellent job at that projection. So they're already using this information to develop their goals and their continuous plans. And, so I don't want you to think we are just now looking at this stuff. We've been looking at it since the summer because we have to do that. If we wait for report card data to be released, here we are, and almost the first semester is already lost. So, but going back to this, I do want to say that I believe we will see a drastic impact from the boots on the ground, so to speak, from the special education department. So I'm really excited about the things that we're seeing come out of that department, and they're better able to support our schools and the teachers who teach those children. All right, so the next one is graduation rate, and I think that probably falls better in your wheelhouse. So I'll turn
we're excited that our strategic plan was to have an 88.6, and right now we're projecting next year to be 89.1, and then currently we see now 88.1, which exceeds the 85.5. So that's exciting for our district that our high school kids are getting what they need and they're graduating. And we think the next one might be college and career readiness scores, and we do see an increase in our college and career readiness. Our ultimate goal is to get to our cohort of 2026 to have 100%. Whatever your grad rate is, that needs to be the same for your CCRs. And again, our CCRs are our ACT scores. They are credentialing. They're any kind of college credit the kid could earn, like dual enrollment or AP testing. And we see that we exceeded the goal here, and we see that we're projected to also exceed the goal.
All right. And so the final goal that is within our strategic plan is, as we mentioned, chronic absenteeism. And so just really, really proud of this. You can see our goal was to be at 19%. This is actually the opposite. You want to go down in this category. So, and we hit that at 14.2. And so some of the things that impacted this is just the hard work coming out of central office, our attendance officer, Melissa Allen, and being able to have her there. She watches that stuff roll in daily. And has certainly put in some excellent accountability checks. Our community's been supportive when we have to intervene with parents, and so certainly getting the word out to make sure our parents know how important it is to be at school. All right, so we're going to move into the ACT benchmark and ACAP summative grade level comparisons. And so I just want to say before I start with this that basically with the state report card, if you don't understand it, is the two largest buckets for the state report card is academic achievement and academic growth. Now coming in the academic achievement bucket, we like to call it, that would be your ACAP summative scores, your ACAP alternate scores, and your ACT scores. And so the other one is that bucket that we really want to strive for, and that is the growth. And the reason we so want to focus on the growth is the growth tells us that what we're doing is working. And so we want to continue to have that. So hitting that 100% growth really means a lot to us. And actually the State Department recognizes that because you kind of get bonus points for those students that you move into categories 3 and 4. So just wanted you to know that as we move into this. And also as we talk about grades 2 through 8, which is going to be the most of the data that you will see, that is referring to the ACAP summative. And so that is the state assessment that is administered to grades 2 through 8. Anything on ACT benchmark?
I would just say when we get to ACT benchmarks, the difference when you look at the ACT results is ACAP is they're technically aligned with our Alabama course of studies, and the idea behind it is that we align our instruction and our assessments together. When you get to ACT, it's benchmark. We're trying to reach the national benchmark, so it's a bit different approach to look at it, and we look at the percentage by kids who do benchmark in ACT. But we also have to remember that it is a college entrance exam, and so it's also important that we look at our students who credential, who may earn dual enrollment credit while they're enrolled in Talbot County schools, or that they may score 3 or higher on the AP exam if they choose to take the exam.
All right, and so this is a lot of information. I'm sure Ms. David will share this with you guys afterwards, okay? So we're gonna first pick second grade, and second grade is where we get that baseline data. And so what we did is we didn't put all schools in here, we only put in the schools who actually serve our second grade students. And as you know, the makeup of our campuses, that looks a little bit different. So I'm just going to highlight a few things and then we can move through the other slides quickly. So on the first line, you're going to be able to see the number of students tested and this is proficiency rate. So when we say proficiency rate, these are the percentage of students who scored a level 3 or a level 4. And the scoring of ACAP summative is a criteria of 1 to 4, 4 being the highest. So then you'll move down to Autauga County and you can compare our percentages to the state percentage. And then we went ahead and, like I said, we chose each school that serves this grade level. And so I'm not going to move through each of these, but we're going to kind of tag team this, and I'll speak to the elementary grade levels, and then Dr. Marsh can move into those middle school. All right, so I'm just going to do some kind of, if you're an elementary person, you appreciate this, some kind of glows and grows that we see when we look at this data. So I want to first point out that our second graders scored above the percentage or at the percentage as the state level within ELA, and this would be English language, arts, and then this is math. Those are the two main subject areas where we test our students for proficiency. All right, so I just want to say a glow for Pine Level Elementary School. I certainly want to highlight where they hit 81% of their second graders proficient. So that's just like unheard of. So we want to focus and kind of bring some attention. You know, when talking with Mr. Woodfin, he was like, you know, what is Pine Level doing? What are they doing? You look at them right here within math of second grade, they're the highest in the district. And so that is definitely a glow, but an opportunity for improvement for all of us to be able to say what's going on out at Pine Level. I have a few things I think that.
What are your thoughts of why? I mean, because
So I want you to see some of the other numbers because you're going to be really impressed. But as I think about Pine Level, the first thing that comes to my mind is Kristen Harry. All research that we know supports the thought and proof that the longer you have a leader in a seat, there's consistency with building trust, with building culture, with building climate, and academic performance. You can read all you want to about it. It's out there, it's everywhere. Getting people in those seats and holding them to it, that is, I feel, one of the biggest impacts we can do for our schools. We've seen a lot of turnover with principals lately, but I'm going to show you through some of this data, some of our highest performing elementary schools are the ones that the principals have been there 5 years or more.
And they have a good pre-K.
Yes, they do.
Sorry. had to get a
Pre-K
little-
certainly feeds into all of this, so.
on the other side of the spectrum, on Otagoville and ELA and then Otagoville and Billingsley with math, or any explanation or what we're gonna do or planning or?
Well, and I'm going to say this, I don't mean this as an excuse at all, please don't. But this, when you see 43% as a state, we're in trouble. And I feel like, and I know a lot of colleagues would agree with me, when you start looking at these ELA numbers and the impact of the Literacy Act along with all the resources that have been poured into this subject area, I feel like it is impacting this one, particularly in second grade. And Mr. Holland, you'll know this from your background. You know, in these early childhood classrooms, it's all about reading. And it's going to have to be a mind shift. And we're going to have to begin to put some focus on our math as well. And the State Department is rolling out some support through the Office of Mathematic Improvement for that, as well as math coaches. We have 2 schools with math coaches right now, so they're gradually pushing that out. The good news is Otagoville and Billingsley both have math coaches this year, and they are in the classrooms all the time. They go to lots of professional learning that they come back and turn around to the teachers at the school buildings. Okay? All right, so also with the second graders, they don't have any growth. That's the baseline, okay, just for your information. Third graders, so we all know this is a target grade level right now with the Literacy Act. Again, I just want to say, let's see, look back at my glows and grows. So again, we're seeing where Autauga County, 70% proficient with the state being 64, and our math area 50 with the state being 52. So we're seeing a lot more growth in this grade level, again, in this ELA, but I do want to highlight Daniel Pratt Elementary School, Pine Level Elementary School, and Prattville Elementary School. So just some unbelievable numbers coming out of there. 72, 71, 73% in that ELA category. I want to go back again. I'm going to say some of the same things. I feel like the Literacy Act and the accountability that has been placed on schools across the state, that is where you're seeing the impact with these numbers. And again, I think we have to be more mindful as teachers that yes, there's a lot of accountability here, but again, we can't leave these kids behind, because we know that if we keep pushing them along, once they hit those middle schools and high schools, they're never going to catch up in math. So one grow that I would like to say is this area, this obviously is very concerning. Otagoville School sitting there at 7%. The math coach, like I said, she's actually here tonight, is heavily involved in those classrooms and making sure those teachers have the strategies that they need to be able to deliver strong instructional math instruction. All right, so fourth grade, I'll just give you a moment to see there, but I will, again, would like to say our district being 67%, state 59 at ELA, math 50%, state at 39%, and science at 52%, and the state at 43%. Now, science is going to be in a couple of grade levels. That's not tested at every grade level, but fourth grade being the very first one. I want to say another shout out to Prattville Elementary School. When you look here, you see the most proficiency in 73% there. So great job of what's going on at that school building in ELA. A grow area, again, we're seeing some weakness in the Billingsley and the Otaugaville area at 15% and 26% proficiency in fourth grade math. And so that is a focus area again. Now, I do want to say, Mr. Holland, that, they assign coaches to schools based off of this data. So when I talk about the proficiency being so low across the state of Alabama, we thought for sure we would get another coach at some of these, even with these scores. We were shocked we did not. So as a district, we've had a math coach at Billingsley and Otaugaville. We were hopeful that we would earn one, but on the flip side of that, it was okay we didn't, because while these are not numbers we want to see, apparently there's some a lot lower across the state because we
So
that's
Billingsley,
science.
oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, that's science, so you're saying.
I'm
science
sorry,
needs a
right here.
coach
Yes, I'm
too?
so sorry, thank you.
Math.
Okay, so you're just
Yes,
on.
math.
But the science percentages don't qualify for.
We don't.
We
No,
don't get coaches
yes,
for that.
sorry, that's normally the
Okay.
last column, so math. So Otaugaville at 8% proficient, and Billingsley at 20% proficient.
Okay.
They qualified for a math coach, and they've had a math coach for 2 years. Otaugaville School has had a math coach last year, and she left us, so there's another coach there. She's new this year.
So Billingsley and Otaugaville will have a full-time math coach,
Yes, sir, that is funded from the State Department of Education.
and they've had for the last 2 years.
Yes.
And just quick math, of the 14 students tested at Otaugaville, 8% equals like 1.16 student.
Yes, sir.
That's on grade level or proficient.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
I also want to add that at Otaugaville School, and they do this, the data showed us that we were not making progress, and so Mr. Ziegler, through some collaboration with us as well, decided that their teachers at second grade and third grade, they are departmentalized. Now, other schools in our district you will see be departmentalized, but normally not until the third grade. But the reading scores coming out of there last year at those grade levels indicated that one teacher was stronger at reading, and so we wanted to get those students ready to pass, and so the decision was made, and they currently still have this practice in that those two teachers, teacher A teaches second grade math and third grade math, and teacher B teaches, second grade.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So,
So that's
I don't
difficult
know
to
that model
specialize. I mean, she's got to know both.
Yes.
That's difficult to specialize.
and I don't know that that is a model we need to continue with.
So are you,
And the same model is used in the fourth and fifth grade
At Otaugaville or?
at Otaugaville,
Okay.
only at Otaugaville.
so what do you suggest that we do to fix that, to
Well,
make sure that doesn't happen?
I think that depending on units and how those fall, and sometimes because it's a K-12 school, it looks different every year. One of the things that I've seen since being in the seat that I'm in is the inconsistencies that we encounter at Otaugaville School due to staffing.
Elaborate on staffing. What causes, I mean, because of staffing, what does that mean?
do you mind if we do this? We're going to talk about each school.
You should.
And I think
That's
that
fine.
might be a good
Yeah,
conversation
that's
when we
fine.
get to
Yeah.
Otagoville,
Yeah.
because it is such a unique
Yeah.
situation. And I'm sorry if you're okay.
No,
with
no,
that.
I'm good, yeah.
So 5th grade. Okay. Again, well above state percentages. The GLOW, I do want to say a shout out to Billingsley School. We kind of picked on them a little bit, so let's give them a little kudos. And that is in the ELA category. Their 5th graders at 85%. And that's pretty impressive too, especially in a 5th grade classroom. That's difficult to happen.
Okay, got a question there.
Okay.
Just kind of tracking those kids, those 35 kids, have they always scored high, or is there?
It's funny you'd ask me that, because I called Ms. Skinner today when drilling down on this, because I said, tell me a little bit about, and she indicated to me, and I haven't looked at this cohort of kids, but she did indicate that this is a higher performing group.
Okay, because just looking at the numbers I'm writing down, I mean, that's a huge jump of just grade by grade of,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah. So that was something too that we noted.
And if I can, I want to add in this as well. Traditionally, the smaller your schools are, the more variance you're going to have in your data, traditionally, just because of that. You may, it just changes with the kids that come through. So when you're talking in those, I can't hardly see anymore, in those students, I believe it's 12 at Otagoville and 35 at Billingsley. Obviously, 2 or 3 kids, one way or the other, is going to shift that overall percentage significantly, much more than it does at, say, Pine Level with 128, I think it says. So just bear that in mind as well.
Again, an opportunity for growth certainly would be Otagoville at the 25% ELA, and again, the math. The math is at 8%. Oh, I went ahead and went to 6th grade, so I'll go ahead and go to that. Again, we were at or above state percentile, and I do want to say a GLOW to Billingsley and Daniel Pratt, again, on those ELA scores. One thing too that, and with the exception of this and this, we did, 2021 was a implementation of the new ELA standards, as well as a textbook adoption. And so we tend to also think about the materials and the resources that we're using, and was the shift in standards, did that add a level of rigor?
And I don't know if you want to do this now when we talk about schools, but Marbury Middle School has come on the board here in 6th grade, and it seems like a pretty substantial decline from 5th grade to 6th grade of what we're seeing in reading and math.
Yeah, well, let's go back. If we look at Pine Level Elementary School, these students leaving that school at 78 in ELA, they get to Marbury Middle, and look what happens, 52.
And even the math score was a drop from 5th grade.
So Pine Level 69, they get to Marbury at 20. That's science.
32.
32.
Any ideas on the whys there?
I think that most of what I'm going to say is probably going to sound like an excuse.
Sure.
So I'll say that to start with. You enter a very elementary type setting, you enter a middle school setting. Some of my wonders would be the level of rigor that is being offered within the classrooms. Are we teaching the standards? Are we only teaching the textbook? Things like that. Are we using the data to drive our instruction? Are we drilling down and holding teachers accountable within our buildings? To me, that starts from the top. And if I'm not a data-driven leader, chances are my teachers are not going to be either. Being in the classrooms, being visible, making sure that quality instruction is delivered. Years ago, we all heard, was it Mr. Butler, what was the 2 teachers on their feet's worth more than 1 in their seat. A
One
lot-
teacher on their feet is worth 2 in the seat.
Okay, that's it, other way around, but you get it. I mean, and it was very powerful, so much that I remembered it and said it wrong, but, yeah. So I think, you know, again, I don't want to sound like it's excuses offered to you,
But
but
it's also an environmental change too, because they're coming from Pine Level to a whole new building, a whole new, they've never been there before too, so that kind of.
But I think we have to use this
Yeah.
because to change our practices.
Well, I can tell you one thing too, the 6th through 8th grade setup is a challenge with a schedule. Because you're having to find electives for your 6th graders, which then hurts what your 7th and 8th graders can take. Use band, for example. I think they funnel every kid right now to 6th grade beginning band, which is great. You can grow a band program. And obviously, if you're familiar with the Marbury Pine Level area, the band is taking off. But you're also using that to fill in a class period that other 6th grade classes in the district do not have. So I think that's one thing. I'm not saying change that model, but I am saying, talking to former principals, and Mr. Conyers is back here too. When I was at Marbury High School, talking to Mr. Barrington and Mr. Conyers, I remember both of them always saying something about the scheduling was tough with getting the 6th graders because that changes the whole dynamic. And the time that you have to allocate for the 6th grade classroom is a little different than 7th and 8th. The electives become an issue there as well. So it's just something that we're aware of, and now how do you solve it? That's what we're trying
And
to
look at
solve.
some that, I like what you said about looking at some that are successful to see how we
Yes,
can replicate.
well, and so Prattville Intermediate, for example, he's got 5th and 6th graders in the building, so he can do a departmentalized
Correct.
model. And so that means that the students I have, they're with me for approximately 3 hours. And that's a whole lot different than a period schedule.
Yes.
You know, so, you know, do we need to look at some of our models of scheduling?
One thing too, and I gotta say this for you guys and everybody to know as well, a huge shout out to Dr. Marsh and Ms. McKnight or Ms. Harrington. Our department heads are going to other districts to learn how they're doing things, and one thing that we've discussed is, okay, if we're gonna keep the 6th through 8th model at Marbury Middle, we've gotta go study some schools that have the 6th through 8th model to see how it changes. They all toured a virtual school the other day to see how they're using it, came back with a lot of great information. We're gonna make some changes for our virtual school. I think that's one thing that we've gotta be able to do is take our data, yes, even if it was a 99, we would still be looking to improve, but also be willing to get on the road and go find other systems that are doing well in certain areas where we need some improvement.
And, you know, Daniel Pratt also is running the departmentalized model.
Hey Holly, can you explain to me why there are variances in students tested at each school? It's kind of bothering me. Like Daniel Pratt's got 147 for ELA, but it's 167
The student was there probably was a student absent, and for whatever reason, they
like
didn't.
20? Because look at science, 167 for the same school. Am I like reading that wrong or?
No, you're a data.
I mean, that's
person, so-
I know this, it's
Yeah.
kind of bothering me. I can't get past it.
That is,
Um,
that could be an error with students tested.
Now, that is
Okay.
one
That
thing
is a
that
lot.
I
But
want you to
it's-
remember in
it's in the-
secondary is because of the way that growth model is measured in secondary, we've uncovered some issues in the last 2 years on that. That does significantly hit your data points once you get to secondary as well. Is everybody taking the pre-ACT or is everybody taking the ACT? And then, because if you miss one of those, obviously that kills your growth and it counts as a 0 and it causes issues.
I would look at the science, because the science is larger on every one of them.
But you
Yeah.
can
Grade,
It's
science.
almost
Yeah.
like maybe we
Yeah.
pay.
Ms. Mills,
Sorry.
I told her about have a band.
I've been noticing
look
it and
at
I'm just like, I was like, do you know
What-
But is
that?
that the first slide?
No, it's every slide.
It also could be that ACAP alternate would be in these 2 categories, which is
Yep.
a different
Oh,
test.
that's
that's
what
true
it is.
too.
That's
That's
what it is.
exactly,
Okay.
because we pulled it off from DRC, and that's probably it.
I was
And-
trying to rationalize the reasons over here.
Possibly.
Everybody takes the science.
Is it all?
Everybody takes it.
This one's
Take
not.
the alternates.
Well,
no
one at Otagoville, like math versus ELA.
Yeah, which that, you could see how that would
One
happen
at
if the
Prattville
students
Junior
asked.
High. Yeah.
0.
Okay, so, since we were talking about scheduling models, now you have more in the 7th grade, you can kind of, Marbury Middle and Prattville Junior High run a similar schedule, is that right? Do they?
Yes. So in our 7th grade, we're very excited that when we look at our state testing and look at our county testing, we're outperforming the state average in ELA, and that's very exciting. That's a great glow for Watauga County schools. Also, all but 2 of our schools exceeded the state at or above in grade level reading, and then junior high school exceeds the state and district at and above the level in math. So those are great things that we want to shout about it being successful. Some of our goals include proficiency at Otaugaville, and it's 1% below the state proficiency for 7th grade math, and our 2 unit schools also are below the state in ELA and in math proficiency, with Otaugaville being at 27 and 0 in math, and then Billingsley at 47 and at 9 in math. Again, no questions there. We're going to our 8th grade.
Well, on the math coach, is the math coach just elementary, or is the math coach for just elementary?
The math coaches and instructional coaches, they're K-5 area. They're not in.
Yeah, those are all funded
Yeah.
through ARI for our reading coaches, K-3. And then math coaches, they're funded through the Office of Mathematics Improvement, but currently we only have 2. And they actually serve grades K through 5.
So there's nothing for this grade?
No.
From 7th grade
For
on,
math.
you are literally restricted to what your administrators can do, and that's one of the great challenges that we have in all of our schools, including our K through 12 schools, because in our K through 12 schools, you have a principal and AP that's now responsible for K through 12. But especially in our junior high and high schools, look, I'm not being funny, discipline's going to escalate once you get to high school. And when you have a discipline case at a high school or a junior high, typically that's going to you're going to take a little more time with that discipline, because usually the infractions are more severe. I would love to figure out a way to replicate the elementary model for Watauga County schools, where we get instructional coaches in our secondary schools. Obviously that gets to funding and some other issues, but I do believe we're seeing the data statewide, and SSA and all of us are echoing this in every chamber that we can. The model is working, getting administrators help in the classrooms. You have to figure out a way to solve that at the secondary level if you want to see the secondary data mirror the elementary.
And that
Well,
might be
and I
why
wanna,
the
you know,
elementary scores are higher than the secondary. You got
Even
people
when
pulling
you
data.
talk about, like, if we flip back to the Literacy Act now, has been around, really in place, strong, 2 years, 3 years, somewhere in there. And when you watch this ELA data grow from 3rd grade, look at that, 4th grade, 5th grade, these kids, as they are cycling up, these are some of the first kids being hit by that. So I heard it best said the other day, and since we've got some athletic people on the board, I think you'll appreciate this. Everybody needs a coach. And it was said, Peyton Manning, the best quarterback ever, right? He had a coach.
Amazing.
And it was never, it's not that the coach is better than Peyton at being a quarterback. It's because he walks beside him and shows him the strategies.
That's right.
And so that's what we're seeing in our elementary schools. When we talk about instructional coaches, they're not in place for evaluation, anything. They go, they receive professional development, and they come back and coach teachers. And that's a skill set that principals don't have. I mean, they don't teach that in principal school. All right?
8th
Go
grade.
back to 8th grade real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're excited about our 8th grade, because our 8th grade outperformed the state in ELA, math, and in science. And that's kudos. And again, we talked, someone mentioned Marbury Middle, they exceeded the state's proficiency in ELA, and they're in the same score as the state.
What was, like, just, again, trying to copy what works. Prophet Junior High had the most students, testing, and then 40% in math. Is it something schedule-wise that they're doing, or
I think they got a good set of math teachers there, to be honest with you. And some of the first people that called my phone was some of those math teachers about the needs they saw with some of their students and how they felt like they should be in this math and that math. And so we granted them permission to move some kids to higher level math and some kids to the other level math. And that's not normally done, but trying to do what's best for our students. And what we think when you're trying to build your capacity and teacher advocacy, you try to listen to those voices, they're boots on the grounds. And so we went with it. And at the end of the day, when I walk through those classrooms, I go see those teachers, some of them came out of retirement back into teaching, and they're talking to each other. That means they're building each other, and they're talking about their kids, and they said, you need to go with her, and you need to go over her. That kind of thing, if they can be replicated in some of the other places where we got growths at and where we got deficiencies at, that's it. But some of our schools, it's kind of hard to keep the teachers. Matter of fact, we're getting ready to submit an ELL teacher for one of our schools, and we've been in it, for a whole semester. And so, and that's in some of our rural areas. And so, I may just ramble, but
No, I thought it was a good answer. Hey, real quick before we leave on the ELA, I mean, just looking at Marvin Middle, like 7th and 8th grade, it seems like they catch back up. I mean, they're pretty equal with Prattville Junior High. It looks like that 6th grade of that transition year of going from the elementary to the middle. Is there a way we can help that trend? Is there a way, like for the 5th grade teachers, 6th grade teachers, of I don't know, of collaboration or something to ease that transition so it's not such a shock?
That would be some beneficial conversations with Mr. Mann. And it kind of makes you think of like a 9th grade academy. When we send our 9th graders over to Prattville High School, I don't know that they still do that, but it's kind of a coddle year because it is so, or when the kids go to the junior high. I don't know.
like an orientation or something in transition that come and visit the school before they actually sent to the school. We can look at those things with those two principles.
Okay.
And then here's our ACT benchmarks. Again, it's a different way of looking at it because this is not the end all in all. But although it makes a huge impact on our report cards when it comes to academic achievement and then academic growth. The ACT scores is used to measure growth from the pre-ACT, which they took in the 10th grade to the 11th grade. So some of the things that I think is that we're excited about is that, I don't have it up here, but the average composite score for the state of Alabama is 17.4. And the average composite score for Talbot County schools is 17.4. And so when you look at that average, we see some disparities and things that we don't like. For example, we're excited to see 36% of our 11th graders at Prattville High School benchmarking in ELA and 24% in math. We don't see any benchmarks with the number of students here at a Talbot school. But we do see, when we see challenges where we see a little dip, and we'll see that later in Marbury High, we do see that Marbury High has a higher percentage of students benchmarking in math on the ACT than the school that has the most students in benchmarking in vocab.
What happened to Marbury? An 18%? I mean, like.
So that's, and I was talking to the principal today, like, just did it, So, and again, Billingsley has 3 students that benchmark in both ELA and math. And again, their students that's just like ACAP, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. And so a high level 2 could be 18, and a benchmark score could be the 18. So it could be that close. And so, and after they take it, the state testing, they don't look at anything else. So some of these kids have gone and improved their scores, but it's not reflected on the report card because the only thing they put there is the actual state testing report card.
What are we using formatively for our kids? Are we using pre-ACT or what are they using to know beforehand of, are we benchmarking, or are we, so that being a Marbury guy, I'm going to say, so we do not replicate at 18% benchmarking again. I mean, I guess I'm asking, what are we doing different, and do we know we're on the right path?
Can I speak on that just a second?
Yes.
Obviously, I was at Marbury for a while. I think part of what you're dealing with at Marbury, specifically in the ELA. For the years, let's see, because those numbers are our seniors this year, correct? Yes. My daughter is in that class, so I can say it like this. We had a lot of turnover at Marbury High School in our English department, so it goes back to what they were saying as far as personnel. I think that's going to be better moving forward because there's been stability in the English department now than what we've had before. I know, obviously, we're looking at pre-ACT, trying to project that out, but I think it gets down to this too, and as a principal, I was never the guy that's going to preach data every single day, but we got to find a happy middle ground where we can allow our secondary principals to focus on discipline, focus on athletics, to focus on these things, but also become data-driven like we see in the elementary world. I think that is the shift that we have to have in our secondary schools. Is we've got to understand what you just said, that 18 is not acceptable in the ELA at any school, much less at Marbury. So I think the combination of trying to stabilize our employees and stabilize our administration, but also use things like the pre-ACD programs that we have and the ACD programs we have and build that into the master schedule. Dr. Marsh, I didn't mean to steal your
No,
thunder
you're
there. I
good.
just figured I'd jump in on that
And
one.
I would say at the least, we want a level 2, but we got to also know that this is a college entrance test. And so, we looked at, I was interested when I looked at Toggleville, I looked at their current 11th graders pre-ACT data. And there is some predictions there to say that those numbers shouldn't be that way this next administration. There's a particular student that should be scoring a 4. Of course, we need to make sure that we're giving some assistance that's focused on the pre-ACT. And I will again say that taking the pre-ACT data and using that in planning for our instruction priority for us. Also sharing that data with our students so they know where they are and let them build and set goals for themselves as it relates to how they want to perform on the ACT.
Can I jump in one more time? As a principal in the district forever, I feel it's my obligation to say this. As a principal, I've very rarely had data conversations with central office, okay? We recognized last year that our curriculum model needed to be overhauled, and that's what you see now. Dr. Marsh is on the campuses. They're probably tired of talking about data because they've probably talked it more this year than what they have in the last 10 years. It's always been a fabric of what we do in elementary, so I don't think it's been that big of a shift, but I think you've seen tonight, Ms. McNider knows her data on that as well. So I feel really good where we're at. I fundamentally believe to improve the secondary level, we have to figure out a way to get some more boots on the ground to mirror what they're doing in elementary. So I like what we're doing with Dr. Marsh being over all secondary schools. He is the direct supervisor for every secondary principal. Ms. McNider is the direct supervisor for all elementary principals. Now they're getting one voice that is looking at their data a lot. And again, I know for a fact we're doing things now than what would be different than what we've ever done before. So I feel good at where we're headed. It's just, and especially with the report card scores, the CCR and the grad rate, you're really not going to see a change in those components until 2 years from now because the data is actually a year behind. So I feel good where we're headed.
So there's a fourth of our students in Ottawa County schools that meet the benchmark overall,
Yes,
basically.
ma'am.
So do you feel like we're going to, by this time next year, that it'll be a little bit more than a fourth? Are we, you are seeing our strides that we're making? I have an 11th grader this year, so
Okay.
he'll be part of the next.
Vested interest.
Yeah, so I'm real, I think I thought it would have been higher.
Yes.
A lot
Now,
higher.
again, it's the composite for the state is 17.4.
Yeah.
So we want better than that for sure.
Mhm.
But, and
With it being the same scores, we're in line with the state average is. That's not acceptable, but I think it's a point. I mean, that's what you're
Yeah.
saying.
right.
Yeah.
So that's
Now,
not our desire, but that's a reality of what we're living at. Now, I would say, I
Yes, it will be
think,
better.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
like for it to be better.
we are
And it's important, like you said, this is a college pathway.
Yes.
We've got students, that will obtain a CCR based off of work keys and CTE and those kind of things. So, you know, not everybody's going to go to college. We need some of them to
And-
go to
right.
the workforce.
Correct. And we also explore more opportunities for dual enrollment as well, and that would also be an indicator for success in college.
I'm sorry I didn't get those other slides.
Oh, it's fine.
All right, so that's just kind of a snapshot of surrounding district scores. That would be their district. All right, so we're going to try to go quickly through these, okay? So we just want to highlight each school. These are actually placed in highest to lowest, but I have to say I couldn't put Pine Level beside Prattville Elementary School. So before I start, I have to say, and I don't think you would expect anything less, our elementary schools did phenomenal. So yes, it has been a lot of hard work on a lot of people, and aligning our resources and making sure we're all on the same page. I can visit classrooms if I'm going to visit third grade classrooms. If I walk into a third grade classroom at Pine Level, I'm going to see the same thing if I go to Prattville Elementary School. So I'll start with Pine Level Elementary School with a 92. Just a couple of things I do want to, I know they would want this shout out, so I appreciate you giving us the time to make it. So Pine Level Elementary School moved from an 88 score to a 92, which is just a lot of points to gain. You don't see schools move that amount. So just some drill down on them, 100% growth. In fact, when we did our predictions this summer, if they passed out bonus points, they would have gotten them. Like their growth was, like when you calculate the points, like I was like, how are they going to get like 125 points? It caps at 100. So, you know, just unbelievable movement out there. And so, yes, that's some areas we need to find out what they're doing. Not only 100% academic growth with their students, which I know this probably doesn't make sense, but it also is 100% growth on their students with disabilities. And so for that to happen too is just unbelievable. And also 100% for economically disadvantaged students. And so we all know the research, what the research says, and they're moving kids, that's for sure. Also, they improved their absenteeism by 14%. So it's a very, you asked earlier what I feel like they are doing, and of course I said Kristen Harry comes first to mind, but that would be any principal would come first to mind, right? But when talking about Miss Harry's been the principal there for 8 years. And so when you have that consistency and leadership, like I said, we all know that's going to build trust in the culture, not of just her school, but of her community, and those relationships that are built, you know, over time. Now, can you have an ineffective principal for 8 years? Absolutely, but you know, I want to give a huge shout out to her. She's also extremely data driven. When Mr. Woodfin talked about having not just meetings with us, but she takes it to the teachers, and then the teachers take it where? To the students. The students set goals, they talk about their data, they know what it means to set a goal and work hard to get there. And I think after 8 years of that model, you're seeing a major impact on academic achievement.
Do you think that her teachers also, like there's longevity of them staying at that school as well, if that makes an impact?
What's the turnover at Pine Level?
It had been pretty stable until last year. We had quite a few retirements and people that moved. So she actually replaced probably more last year.
Which would have been when this came out. Like, this is based off of last year's data.
Yeah, but they left after the test.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see next year.
Those are the kids, those are the teachers that were there.
That were still there.
We replaced them this summer, but typically, it's not a very high turnover rate.
So prior to the lot of the retirement, so it's safe to say that teachers staying at a school also plays a role?
Absolutely, yes.
Curious just what the average amount of years is that they stayed there. You probably don't know, I'm just,
But yes.
sorry, I'm just,
Yes,
since
you're
Kristen's
exactly right. I mean,
Miss
you know,
Harry's
we
8
all,
years.
get better at our job the longer we do it, or we should.
Well, I wasn't even thinking the tenure of them being a teacher. I'm just saying of them being a teacher at that school. Yes.
And I
That's
tell
what
you
I'm
this about
curious.
Miss Harry too, if you're ineffective in one grade level, you're gonna get moved to another. So, you know, they have a phenomenal reading coach that has years of experience. I mean, just all of those things. And of course, just the teachers, so. All right, so Prattville Elementary School, again at a 92. A couple of shout outs for this school. We've seen a major shift in climate and culture at this school. No disrespect to previous administration, but if you walk through that school, you know the minute you walk through the door that people want to be there. And again, when people want to be there, then they boil that over to the students, and the students want to be there. And so, and talking to teachers at that school, it's just a major climate shift that Miss Lindsay has done in just a very small amount of time. But she's very good at surrounding herself with people who have that same belief system, and so they're able to move their team forward. So again, I want to highlight 100% growth of students, 100% growth within the economically disadvantaged subgroup, and in the subgroup of students with disabilities, they had 92% growth. So again, some great things going on at that school. And absenteeism was a big rock for them last year, and they dropped that 10%. Like I said, the students want to be at Prattville Elementary School. Prattville Primary School, just so you know, they actually received their report card data in the academic achievement and the academic growth from Prattville Elementary School because they're a feeder. So really the only piece they can work hard at is absenteeism. And so I'll say, being the previous principal there, that's hard to move because little kids get sick a lot. But they did a very good job at that. They dropped their absenteeism 16%, which is also significant. So we'll move to Prattville Kindergarten, who also receives their academic achievement and academic growth from Prattville Elementary School. So no pressure on the elementary school, but they are carrying 3 schools. So we were thankful they did really well. But so again, the only piece that Prattville Kindergarten can work hard at reaching would be that chronic absenteeism, and they dropped theirs by 6%. So when you see these numbers, you understand now what impact it makes on the district numbers. 91, Daniel Pratt Elementary School, just want to highlight that this would be data coming off of Donna Finch, and I'm going to go back to, she was the principal there for 5 years. Miss Finch also, very much like Miss Harry, extremely data-driven, exhaustingly data-driven. And so this school, you will see a score sitting there for English language proficiency. That's your students, your ELL students. And so Daniel Pratt is the only school, elementary school that meets the M count. So they do get some points from those students. So what that means is they have more than 20 EL students. I heard Dr. Mackey say, you probably did too, it was on the news, that they've seen a statewide drop in that category, and they're trying to identify why and push in resources to be able to reach those students as well. I will say Daniel Pratt had the lowest absenteeism in the district, and the focus at this school, I observed Mr. Thornton at a faculty meeting, and he addressed his faculty and showed them the data, explained to them that he used some title funds to hire a math intervention teacher because they saw a huge dip in the math scores at that school, and they don't qualify for a math coach. So I thought that was really good. Again, just want to mention that that principal was there for 5 years. Prattville Intermediate School, you know what, this is a shiner right here too. So I'm going to take a minute to do a shout out. Dr. Addison, just phenomenal job. He moved it, they moved it from an 83 to an 88. So a lot of great things going on at that school. If you haven't seen that campus lately, I encourage you to go by and see it. A lot of improvements there. It just feels different this year walking in. Dr. Addison has been, this is his 7th year as a principal there. And I truly believe that when you have that consistency, that's when you begin to see the achievement move. So just some highlights from them. Academic achievement last year was 68.4, and this year at 74. So making some huge gains over there at Prattville Intermediate School, and decreased their absenteeism by 10%. And as we all know, that's not easy to do in a middle school either, because they don't really like to come either, right? All right, so that is the highlight of the elementary schools, but I think they all deserve a round of applause, because I hope that they're watching.
Okay, shout out to our junior high for academic growth at 100% with a score of 84. We're excited about that. Again, one of our challenges is continue with our academic achievement, which is our ACAP. We've already looked at those results. I will say this, we show science, but science is not configured in any of our results. They don't use it for calendar. It's just published. And they do also have a large EL population. Next slide. Marbury Middle School, again, we 93% academic growth. Shout out to them for that. We also want to give a shout out and a growth in academic achievement. We know that deficiency is in our 6th grade. We saw great things in our 8th grade. I would also say for the junior high and the middle school, we do have 2 new principals on place this school year. And we're having these conversations about making even more improvements. I would say that Mr. Mann has taken ownership, and him and his assistant principal, Ms. Peel, they have taken ownership of what's going on at Marbury, and they know some of those challenges, and they're going to work on those things as well. Billings in school, again, with an 83% grad rate, academic growth of 89, we like for that to be 90 or higher. Academic achievement, we looked at that from 2nd grade all the way through to our 11th grade, and we know what those challenges are, and definitely some challenges right there with the ACT scores, improving those ACT scores.
I'm sorry.
You're good.
Are
Marbury.
you ready for that one?
Yeah, we can move.
Okay, you got Billings?
Ms. McNider took all the time. She said,
yeah, we can move on. Okay, Billings. Again, we want these 2 rates to mimic each other. And so we're not there yet, but we're working on it. And we think we can do some things also with our ag program that's already out there. Prattville High School has a score of 75. That should be much higher next year. We know this is a issue, and we need to attack that issue. They're growing, and their grad rate is also improving, and the college and career readiness is also improving. So I think next year you'll see a much higher report card from this school, and it's particularly because we have a principal who's taking ownership of data and using that data to drive his decisions on his campus. Marbury High School, again, we have a brand new principal here who's aware of the challenges that they have. Great grad rate, but we know we got issues in academic growth and academic achievement. And I will say this, it's not up here, but there's another piece of data for participation. The goal is that 95% of your students participate in your accountability assessment, which would be the 11th grade for ACT for these students. There's a 91% in the ELA, and so that's configured into both of these categories. Everything else is above 95% for math and science. But my question in the end, like, it doesn't make sense that you would have a dip because you take the ACT at the same time. What we've learned, and I haven't shared this with my superintendent yet, is that at least 12 of those students did the English and did the reading, but did not write, and therefore did not get a score. And that has impacted these 2 categories. And so it's at least 12. I can tell you that 2 of them probably would have got a 4, 5 of them probably would have got a 2.
Like they purposely didn't?
Purposely did. So how we fix that? Well, you asked the question.
Yeah.
You fix that during administration. Your proctor has to walk and look.
Okay.
And I sat with him for about 2 or 3 hours a day, and he's already put in protocols and what, he's talking to his faculty and telling them, this is how we're gonna do this. And he's building incentives into his 11th grade students right now about what they'll have privilege of doing when they come next year. And being a new person here, I was going to the middle school and I saw the parade outside, and so I pulled in. So they got some great traditions out there. They want to continue. He's going to tie that to this.
Is it rigor, or what's the reason that the grad rate's at 92, but college and career readiness is only at 82?
It could possibly very well be monitored and making sure that your kids are earning college career readiness. What you want to see here, if this is higher, then this should be higher because of ACT. But then you have the career tech component. These kids should be credentialing. So if they're not credentialing with our ACTC program, they need to be credentialing with the 2 programs that they have on this campus. And that was our conversation today as well, that they will be taking either the business track or the ag track and taking those credentialing tests.
And my last question, and I'll be quiet, is it cut scores? Is it something else of like, when we look at elementary, like Pine Level at a 92, then it's 81 at Marbury Middle, then a 70 at Marbury High School. On the Prattville elementary schools, it ranges from an 88 to a 92, but then to an 84 to a 75 of why you're seeing them, the scores decrease as they progress through the school.
So ACAP, in theory, this is, our goal should be that we should start with, all right, our course of study, know what we want to do, and then know what we want to assess, and then we plan out the instruction. And we want those things to be aligned. That's easier to do when you have a course of study and you know what the assessment is. And that is ACAP, all that's supposed to be aligned. When you get to the ACT, it's a little bit different because it's not aligned to the courses that you're in. It's standards on there, but they come from all of different places. And then it is also a test. Obviously, the kids who took this ACT and did the 12 that didn't write are really not probably interested in going to college. But we don't have the luxury of saying you can't do this. So until we get that luxury, we have to build some kind of incentives into these students to say, hey, I need you to work hard on that. I'll say that will be also some of our challenging schools. We have to build some kind of incentives into getting these students to apply themselves. What's neat about the ACT is you have a benchmark score. They want you to reach that benchmark score. That's it. But you can have a score below the benchmark and still get into college. So those are the things that you deal with and some of your challenges.
Let me add on that as well. As far as you asked me to go about the CCR, I can speak directly on that. One thing our high schools have got to do, especially Marbury, Billingsley, if you have an ag program on campus, you have ways that you can meet your CCR. We have to make sure that our principals, our counselors, everybody, when we're setting these schedules, especially since it's coming, next year, where you have to have a CCR to graduate, we have to fully understand, and Dr. Marshall and I talked about this quite a bit, you have to fully understand what gets kids their CCR. And if it's something as simple as taking this class, taking this module, we got to be very particular to make sure that all of our students have access to that. The disparity there, I can speak on that a little bit. When ag was put in at Marbury a couple of years ago, we were told from different levels that we could not run everybody through those programs so quick because the data would jump too much to cause a problem. So that's why you're seeing the 82. Now, if you track that from the year before, it's going to be significantly higher than that. My hope is that our principal out there and our staff knows now that you do have a path with 3 career tech teachers on campus where you should be able to streamline that and make sure that we're on track a little better. Does all that make sense? I hope that means we have to do a better job countywide of making sure schedules match what the kids need, and then make sure you have staffing at the campus of each high school to make sure they have what they need for the career tech. Because again, it's going to hit the road next year when everybody's got to have a CCR to graduate.
Okay.
And then Otago School had a score of 59. The academic achievement was 35.68. We've seen that in the previous chart, how that breaks down to ACAP as well as the ACT scores. We did see 77.8% growth, and we know we got challenges with our grad rate. Being a small school, the unfortunate thing is sometimes you have a group that's at 20, and then you have a group that's below 20. And currently you have the 9th grade class that's 31, and so it's kind of sporadic, and that impacts how points get assigned to the report card. And again, I will say that I sat down, Mr. Ziegler sat down and pulled the pre-ACT data from the current juniors, and actually saw where this should be improved, at least contributed by our 11th graders that are out there right now.
Dr. Marsh, how many students are at Otagoville High School?
There's about 60, talking about grades 9 through 12?
Yeah.
About between
I would
60.
say about 60.
70,
From some digging
70,
we looked at today.
79.
79, okay.
79.
In grades 9 through 12.
I think she just looked at that.
Okay.
All right.
That is all.
Is that the last slide,
It
guys?
is.
Yeah, yeah.
Board member data, or?
Did we want to circle back to your question, Kyle?
Certainly, yes, please.
So, because it was Otago that question came up, right?
Right,
As
yes.
far as staffing and the challenge with
Yes.
staffing, and I was talking about our elementary, which is what we were talking about. So if you don't mind, I'm going to direct some of that to Ms. Harrington to discuss staffing and your question.
Well, not so much from a Harrington standpoint.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I was talking about from a you guys standpoint.
Oh, okay.
I would-
I know we're using, teachers in a different way there, 3rd and 4th grade especially, differently than we do other places.
So I think that decision initially was made based on the data to try to improve what was going on. And so you do that for a little while. If the data is not producing, you review it. If it's not good, you revamp it or you chunk it. And so I think what Ms. McNaughton was saying is that, after talking to the principal, he made a major logical decision based on his data. He thought this teacher was doing a better job with reading, so let this teacher do the reading and let this teacher do the math. If we won't know if that's working until after the next administration of the ACAP. If that proves positive, then you keep it. If it doesn't, you chunk it. I would say in the middle grades and your 9th, 10th grade, you have a little bit more consistency of teachers staying there. But when you get up to 11th, 12th grade, you don't. And so, like I said, just recommended an ELA teacher when the last couple of days. It's just hard to staff. It's been hard to staff and hard to keep staff. And so with that is the challenges.
Because with 79 students, okay, Ms. Harrington, you may know this right off the bat. Last year's divisor for high school was what?
Per pupil, like
17.2.
Yeah.
I think it's 17.25. I honestly don't remember.
Okay.
The 17 or 19. 17 or 19.
Can I, while you're doing that, here's the challenge that I see, and I know Mr. Ziegler and I have talked about it as well. At the secondary level, you don't earn, or K through 12, all of our units are earned by enrollment from the state side, okay? The reality of our teachers at Otagoville, and some Billingsley, but especially at Otagoville, up until this year, we were asking our secondary teachers to have 4, 5, 6 different preps. And I don't care how good of a teacher you are, if you're having to prepare for 4, 5, or 6 different classes at a given time, that is going to be difficult, number one. Number two, it's going to be difficult to keep people because you can just go somewhere else and have 2 preps. Now, one thing that Mr. Ziegler's moved in Toggle to a block schedule to kind of cut down on the number of preps that their secondary teachers have. So hopefully that'll show some benefit. Our students at Otago grades 11 and 12, they spend half a day at the Career Tech Center as it is now. They're getting more time at the Career Tech Center than any student in Otago County. So we're trying to take what we have to tailor that to what the kids. I'm sure you're going to ask something about units or something if you're asking about divisor there. So
we're earning 4.5 units. Yeah, in the high school, and I think the obvious question is how in the world are we making ends meet? And I've had this discussion with Mr. Z. To even teach every core subject.
Yeah. Well, to properly or adequately fund a high school, obviously you got to have your cores, you got to have all your electives. One of the big issues that we have at Billingsley and Otagoville is you do not see a wide range of fine arts because there's just no other way of doing it when you don't have enough kids to populate the classes. I'm very glad to see at Otagoville specifically there's been a drum line started. We have a teacher that's doing a really good job of that. But the reality is, your fine art areas, there's not enough students there to justify sending more money to get another unit because, again, you got to go off what you earn. So to answer the question, a general speaking, unit allocation for a high school, you're going to look anywhere from 8 to 12 units if you're properly putting it out there. The school only earns 4.25 roughly. So we're making up the difference with federal money. We're making up the difference with OCE money. We're trying to make up the difference to give what we need. I see the data, and the data's not great. I mean, let's be honest, the data's not good at all. But I don't want this to feel like, and I know nobody here is, I'm going to defend our staff. It's a very difficult job when you're trying to teach that many different preps. The dilemma is, how do you fix it?
Well, that's going to be my question is, we're doing a disservice
Do we
to
have the
kids because when you look through, we're not educating kids.
That's what I was going to say. On that very first slide, it says ensuring all students demonstrate continuous academic improvement. Those are our students, and we are failing them at Otagoville. And some other schools, but it's clear at Otagoville, and it's happening in kindergarten all the way up. I think Kyle said 1 student was on grade level in 4th grade. If I went to a doctor and he only had 1 student, one of his patients survive, I'd have to leave that doctor, or if he kept giving me the wrong medicine. I think we as a board are going to have to make some very difficult decisions. There's no resources. We're struggling with extracurricular activities. We don't have a band. I wouldn't want to go to school and teach there if I had to teach 3 things. I had to have 4 certificates. I'd quit too and go to another school.
You mentioned there were 31, I think you said 31 8th graders.
I think it's 9th grade.
31 9th graders.
Yes, sir.
Okay. How are we doing? How are we managing that? Because if we only have 4 high school teacher units, do we split that class? Is that what we've done? We've split that class so it's like a 9th A and a 9th B, and they.
Well, the challenge there when you have, and Otagoville's in a unique position. They have some grade levels, I believe it's 5th or 6th, where there's 12 or 13 kids. Then you have high school grades like the 9th that has a larger number that you would like to be able to have 2 units. We're fighting the same battle at Billingsley as well, where some of these classes, the numbers are varying where, yeah, we can add a kindergarten teacher and split out the class. Well, at the end of the year, the next year, the kindergarten class may have 15, whereas this past it had 30. So now what do you do with the kindergarten teacher? You're having an issue with following the larger classes at your smaller schools and be able to split the classes because that unit, instead of being, I'm a social studies teacher, well, that unit may be, this year you taught 7th grade, and next year you teach 8th grade, and next year you teach 9th grade, and then that falls into why you're having such a hard time keeping people at Otagoville is there's no consistency. My dilemma with all this is, what else can we do? And I'm open for anything, but the reality is, this is going to feel like with the public that we're bashing our teachers, and we're not. And it's not necessarily the students. It's what else can be done to give the teachers what they need? And that current model with the enrollment issues, if there was 30 kids in every class, you could project out the next year of the unit. But when there's 30 and 15 and 18 and 34, look, guys, I'm gonna say this is an issue that's coming. We've got 23 kids in the kindergarten classroom right now, and we just had a parent reach out wanting to enroll 3 more kids. We're staring at the prospect of having 26 kids in a kindergarten class in
At
January.
Ottaville?
Yes, ma'am, in January. Well, the issue with that is, number one, we had some kids move in late, we couldn't plan for it, but now, if you split that class now, well, what are you gonna do next year when there's 13 kids? You know, and again, that's not necessarily just Ottaville. We had to make that decision earlier with Billingsley on a kindergarten class too. Ottaville's numbers are an issue because they bob and weave so much, it's hard to pinpoint down, and administration's hands are tied, the teachers' hands are tied. You know, my phone's gone up since the report card has went out from parents. They're concerned. So the question becomes, what do we got to do to fix it? And I'm not prepared to give you that answer right now, but those are challenges that, well, I'm going to put it back on my people up there. Y'all are on the campuses more than I am this year. How do you see something that we could do specifically, I guess with Ottaville, to help our people there?
I would
Teachers.
incentives.
All right, what kind of, expand upon that if you don't
I
mind.
would, when you have hard to staff, hard to fill schools, I know we are strapped for money, but incentives for those who would make a decision. I mean, you're better teachers to make a decision to go and work with those kids and stick with them. If you offer incentives, you build in that incentive. That incentive also builds in a certain amount of time that you're going to commit to do that, with certain kind of expectations of PD and things that you're going to do as checkpoints along the way. So
Like giving out stipends for teachers who pick up a club or a.
No,
No.
he's saying if you're working at
Oh,
Ottaville,
of course,
The
teaching
work.
out there.
Probably both.
just to teach.
Oh, just to
But
teach.
But I agree with both, and then just you could because I love the juniors and seniors do make the trip to the ACTC. That's also taking more advantage of that. Could be something perceived that while they're doing career tech, they also take a math or take an ELA.
With that scenario, if they're in math or ELA, would they take the classes at Prattville High School, I'm assuming?
Yes, sir, that's a possibility. It's also a possibility
Or hire somebody in at Career Tech Center?
or the teacher from Prattville just walks over with the students and sits down and go in the classroom.
Currently, how long is the juniors and seniors go to the ACTC, right?
They go in the morning and
And how long are they there?
they come back for lunch and then do the classes after lunch.
No, that's
half
the
the
only
day.
school we're doing that.
That's the only school that's doing that.
How many days a week do they do that?
They do that. Juniors and seniors do it every day.
So they're away from their campus half a day.
Yep.
Ms. McKnight, or anything on your end there? To put y'all on the spot, I hate to do that to you.
I think that we often think about the size of Prattville High School and all the challenges it would be to run a school of that size and that magnitude. It is just as difficult, if not more difficult, to run one that has this few students. And it all goes back to the resources that we qualify for because of enrollment, the staffing.
Right.
And the ability to, have staff that will commit to stay there. because
Just
of
that
the
longevity.
challenges.
So
And
when,
Mark
I
can do
mean,
it.
we've even heard that the students believe when a teacher gets there, they're just gonna leave. Are you gonna stay, or are you just gonna be here for a little
Yeah.
while?
I have a question for Mr. Ziegler. How many juniors and seniors, how many get on the bus every morning to go to, every one of them?
So that's a change that we did to target the CCR indicator because it's so low. Again, trying to make sure we're giving our students everything we possibly can. Again, Mr. Ziegler's done a good job on trying to figure out those issues out.
And that would, going back to, the CCR and the grad rates are a year in the rear. So when we saw that number coming, that was when we started conversations mid-year last year about how to get them there so that they can have more experiences, opportunities, and obviously with credentials.
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
Mr. Woodman, with the 59, does that go into effect, like this upcoming year?
Yes, sir.
Students
All right,
choose
so part of what I'm gonna go over on my report is, I'm expecting a memo any day now from the state, where when you have a school that has a D or an F, it's called a priority school. Part of being a priority school, now, I'm gonna say this, I have not seen the memo yet, so there may be some changes, but if I'm going off of what occurred every year before now, the district will have to provide transportation to any parent in a Toggle that chooses to go somewhere else. That's one thing I'm gonna go over with you guys in a few minutes is 3 different options. We don't have to decide anything tonight, obviously, but it would be an option for parents. We also have to notify parents that they have the option to do that stuff, to be able to ride somewhere else. That's all part of previous memos. And again, I keep saying that because I have not seen the memo yet. It's supposed to be coming any day now. So yes, the 59 is active now. It'll apply for the academic year next year. We will have to provide transportation.
To any high school or just?
No, we would designate the plan.
Okay.
Yes, we would designate it. And again, there, one unique challenge with a Toggle is the population groups in the city or in the town are kind of sporadic. So you'll have clusters of where people live. And that's what I'm going to go over in my presentation is where the lines were drawn, I guess in 2009. I've never really looked at them until today, getting ready for the presentation. But where the lines are drawn, there's some areas where the decision is made, okay, we're going to designate Billingsley as the school where people can go. That won't be so far for a lot of families, but if the family, say, lives around the town of Toggle, that's going to be quite the haul. However, if we designated Prattville High School or Prattville schools as the feeder pattern there, that might not be as far for some of the people in the town of Toggle, but it will be for, I was looking at earlier, is it Fig Tree? Fig Tree. That would be quite a haul for those families. So I'll throw some stuff at you, just, in my report here in a minute about what we have to do. That is part of that rule from the state. Now that it's a priority school, we'll have to give parents this information to allow them to choose
For
whether or
next
not.
school
Yes,
year?
ma'am.
Okay.
It'll be effective next year.
Any other questions or comments?
Hey, thank y'all so much for doing
Yeah.
this and
That
being
was
on
a
the
lot.
spot.
Thank you.
Great job. Thank y'all.
Thank y'all again, guys. Not to keep saying the same stuff, but I feel really good where we're headed. Dr. Marsh and Mr. McKnight are doing a lot of deep dive on data that you saw some today. I'm really glad where we're headed, and we know we got some areas of improvement. We're going to keep looking at it. All right. Before my recommendation for approval of the consent agenda, I would like to give some information on a few items that are listed in that consent agenda. Item number 2 contains all athletic field trips for the month. Item number 3 contains a list of items that are no longer in working condition and need to be disposed. Item number 4 seeks approval to authorize me to enter into a contract with Criterion Consulting to possibly study the following areas. I say possibly because these are just different areas, so it may be all of them pending approval. It may only be one. The first area of study will be a restructuring and zone modification plan involving multiple school closures and new construction projects. The second portion of this will be a restructuring and rezoning plan utilizing current facilities. The third part of the study will be an analysis of a potential school system, a potential school system formed by the city of Prattville, including the positive and negative impacts on both the city of Prattville and the Ottawa County system. I'm going to pause there because I know that's going to cause a shock. I'm not advocating for a city system. We're not doing that. But part of the tax plan, when the tax was voted down, a lot of citizens in Prattville have been clamoring for a city system for a while. I just want to look at, does that benefit, does it not, both entities, whether it's the Board of Education and the city of Prattville. At the end of the day, and I'll get to this in my stuff in a minute, at the end of the day, With the property tax failing, our citizens have challenged us to find other funding sources, and that's what this study is going to look at. The final part of this would be a possible hybrid school system comprised of a funding partnership between the city of Prattville and the Ottawa County school system. So we're looking at a lot of different things. Again, I'm not saying I'm going to sign off on every single study, but that item number 4 is seeking authorization to put me in a position where I can discuss this with Criterion. Item number 5 is a coaching contract for Prattville Junior Varsity Soccer. Item number 6 contains supplemental pay requests to perform needed routine building maintenance that's outside of what our maintenance department does at the moment. So are there questions with the consent agenda as presented?
Since you brought it up, would a hybrid or a city school system, would it include the revenue that currently goes to Elmore County? Would that then come to our schools,
All
either
right.
Ottawa County
Yeah.
or if it was a city school?
I'll start with a hybrid system. Currently, there's no systems like this in the state of Alabama. Obviously, this started with me trying to look around at other states that have the same funding model we have and funding issues. In theory, and I say that because that's why I'm looking to go with Criterion, they study these types of things. They'll give a neutral third-party analysis on all of it. A hybrid system would entail the borders of the city of Prattville would fall under Ottawa County Board of Education. Currently, there's a portion of that goes to Elmore County Board of Education that includes students, it includes tax revenue, it includes all that. So if we were able, and look, everything I'm saying it would require legislative approval. There's a lot of steps to it. Obviously, the city would have to agree to it. I'm just wanting to enter in this contract with these guys to let them look at everything as a whole so that I can present back to you guys the information. Now, this study is very extensive. It's going to be at least March before it's wrapped up. So they will look at housing trends, they will look at enrollment data, they will look at obviously tax revenue. It is a full comprehensive analysis of everything that we're looking at. So that hybrid model, yes, to answer your question, it would include anything in the city of Prattville. I don't know, I forgot the second part of the question, but yes, it would include that.
Do you know how much we currently
Yeah.
send to Elmore County?
Yeah.
I don't
Prattville, not
that
Ottawa.
city of
Yeah,
Prattville.
we don't. I've been told it's in the neighborhood of between 3 and 5 million now. Obviously, I don't have access to that data that the Elmore, I guess the Board of Education receives from that area. I'm not sure of that. Again, that's why this third party would look at it, because they would have access from the information from city records, our records, Elmore records, and again, they would put together a third-party analysis where they present all that.
So let's just say it was $5 million.
Okay.
Just throwing that out, even though it's an easy number. So if we did the hybrid model, that $5 million would then come to Ottawa County Schools
Yes,
instead
ma'am.
of Elmore County.
Yes.
And if it was a city of Prattville, like a city school system, it would then go to the city of Prattville schools
Yeah, a lot of that,
instead of Elmore County.
yeah, a lot of,
Okay.
part of what that group would study as well is, you've seen the articles on AL.com, you have several systems that are looking at a split between city and county. And again, we're not advocating for that, but some of the blow up in that splitting process has been the allocation of sales tax revenue, and that's what this study would look at. Is right now, my understanding, and I'm not an expert, but right now my understanding is that the county portion would keep the county sales tax. The city, in theory, if they broke off in the city system, they would have access to money on the east side of Prattville that they currently, again, it goes to Elmore at the moment. So that's why we're going back to that study. There's so many layers to that that I, quite frankly, I've done all the research I can do on trying to find some more funding. We know we have an issue there. Our teachers don't have what they need. Our students don't have what they need. But that's why Criterion will look at all aspects of it that I, quite frankly, don't have access to.
Could, if there is a potential split or something, could it harm the county school system?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in theory, it just depends on how the information, the tax money is split up. But again, I think that's why we rely on this group, because this is what they do. They come in as districts are changing. They provide a neutral third-party analysis. Now, What I would like to see from this is, let's fast forward to March or April. If the barrier for our county is a lot of our citizens want a city system, they need to understand what that's going to take to form that, both in the money we currently have or possible additional revenue. We have got to get past the barrier of our citizens wanting more information, but we cannot give them the information. I know we're all on the same page of, at the end of the day, we have to do what's right for all of our kids, and we represent all the county. So to answer your question, could it harm? I'm not in a position to say yes or no. I would say if somehow or another, if some of the county sales tax was left with the city, then in theory it could. But again, if you look at those numbers, roughly if it was the split, a third of the students would be in the county, 2/3 would be in the city. And if you look at it that way, and I'm not claiming to be a mathematician or anything, but I do see a possible path where per pupil the funding would actually go up. Now again, I'm not an expert. Ms. Poe and I have met on this 100 times. We both have agreed that we're not an expert. Let's punt it to a third party that does this for a living and let them look at it. Now I want to make sure everybody understands this too, because I know this is going to probably go a little viral on this stuff. There is no agreement with the city. There's no any of that. This is us trying to get ahead of knowing what the future may hold. If this is something that the citizens of Prattville want, then eventually it will probably come. We as a board need to know how to handle it if it ever comes. The hybrid model, you're getting the funding access, you're getting access to funds, but you're not entirely splitting the system. But on that as well, there are no hybrid systems in Alabama. You got to go to Georgia. There's a couple over there. I would love to tell you how that would work, but again,
Would that would take legislative action?
yes, yeah. My understanding is any of this would take legislative action as is. I think for us, we promised our citizens that we would look at all funding sources. Honestly, that is the last bucket of money that we have not had access to, and I'm not mean that ugly. They've been great partners. So I think the prudent thing to do is to look at what that looks like for the city, for us. Let everybody see the data. Let's see if it benefits anybody. If it does, hey, let's work together on continuing that partnership. If it don't, at least we can present it to our citizens and go, look, that is the last option. We've looked into it. Here's the data. Here's the results.
But then if they come back and say, no, a city system is not attainable, then we do have to look at consolidating. I mean, it says consolidating.
Yeah. Well, that was part of what we went around saying, and I received a lot of the emails and calls, hey, you're just scaring people. That's not the truth. Right now, as it sits, right now, at the end of the year, we're going to lose about 30 teaching units across the county. That's 30 units that our schools are going to have to cut. Now, it varies with some schools. Guys, I've said this repeatedly in public, we have an enrollment problem in the city of Prattville with the schools on this side of town. That's PPS, PIS, PES. The data looks good. We're very excited about it. But when you're completely relying on funds from the state based on enrollment, you have to be able to forecast that stuff out. And my concern, at the end of the year, Prattville Primary's lost a lot of students. Prattville Intermediate, Prattville Elementary has as well. There's a point of diminishing returns there where you have to keep cutting units, and the product is not what the product was because you're asking teachers to take on more and more jobs as you have to cut units. This model, if it's something we can do and we're infused with some cash that we don't have right now, quite frankly, that probably keeps more schools open. But I will say this, even if we've got $20 million in tomorrow, if that enrollment continues the way it is, we're going to have to make decisions on school closures because you're not being prudent with the people's money. I mean, we're replicating a lot of services. So I think the study is a good opportunity for us to get an unbiased opinion on where are we at, what are some options, and I know y'all agree with me on this. If it means we're the first in the state to try something, we're the first. If it don't work, we try. That's the mandate we've been given by our citizens. I think this is something we look heavily at.
I know we've talked about revenue in the Elmore County portion of Prattville. Obviously, there is a lot of growth in the northern corridor of 31. That it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that that's the future of tax base that we have to be able to capture. What do you have any? Can you talk of anything? I mean, I know we don't have money, okay, but as soon as Stone Martin goes north of the interstate and builds a 600 rooftop neighborhood, we got to put those kids somewhere. And that's got to be on somebody's mind as we're planning this, to be able to either add on to the high school, build a new middle school. That's got to be in the forefront also.
Yeah, I'll say this, we got two major barriers, not only two, but in my opinion, you got two major barriers moving forward. Number one, in the city of Prattville, at some point, you're going to have to build a new high school because, well, for a lot of reasons, the facility can be used for a great elementary or a junior high or some type of school like that. Now, the reason I say a new high school, I'm going to get to Marbury in just a second. If the numbers are what they are trending to be, the entire feeder program or feeder pattern in Prattville is predicated on a 2,000 student allotment once they get to Prattville High School. Prattville High School right now runs 1,750 students. So that number is dwindling from the top down, but my concern is when you're looking at your elementary schools, those numbers are continuing to decrease as well. So what is that? What do our people in the city of Prattville want? Well, you get the same calls I do. You know, we have some opportunities that are out there. If we can find a funding partner, I think we can change the game in the city of Prattville. Now, you asked about Marbury specifically. That came up in a community meeting. I had a parent ask me point blank, same scenario, and I appreciated that question. Here's the unbiased answer, and this is the second major issue coming. We have no way of getting loans to fix the Prattville problem or the Marbury problem. So if a subdivision goes in Pine Level, and there's 300 houses, we're going to have to redraw the lines and send parents that are up in that area back down to Prattville because the Prattville numbers are dwindling or decreasing. Those numbers are increasing, and if you have more houses get built, we're going to have to accommodate the kids because you got to put them somewhere. With the addition we did at Marbury High School, I was the principal there. Guys, I think there's one open classroom. So if you have a 300 house subdivision go in up there, it's not there. So the whole point of this study, again, is to look at possible revenue streams that we've never had. If it benefits everyone in that agreement, then that's one thing. If it don't, hey, at least we looked at it. Did I answer that? I know I kind of went a little different route there, but we don't have a way to accommodate the growth in the Marbury Pine Level area as it sits right now because, again, we could go get another loan smaller, but when our financial advisor is telling us we don't need to do that, I am not comfortable doing it until we pay down debt. I do not see us being able to construct a school with our current financial situation for minimum 5 to 6 years, and that'll get us to some of the bonds that we can pay off in 5 to 6 years. In 5 to 6 years, I'll say, okay, yes, we can start building some stuff then. The question is, will our parents wait that long?
Well, not will our parents wait that long, but our developers, and is the growth going to wait that long? That's something we can't control. But furthermore, on to that one, okay, as that corridor continues to grow with the sewer that's being put in and the things that are happening there, you talked about this hybrid model in the city of Prattville along with us. What does that begin to change?
If a hybrid, you're talking about specifically, what are you saying change?
Yeah, if it's a hybrid or a city option here inside the city of Prattville.
Yeah, what does it change?
What does that change as far as how that might look to us?
Well, I think the first thing it changes is if that, and there's a lot of ifs there. I mean, you're talking about legislative approval, you're talking about State Department approval, you're talking about a lot of hurdles. But if you're able to access the additional revenue, then obviously that changes the game with your borrowing ability, changes the game with what you can allocate to schools in terms of teacher resources. It changes the game with what you can do to reduce class sizes. Our reality is, with the property tax being defeated, and again, people spoke, and it's our job to carry out their will. That was really our last hoorah in terms of what we could control to access funds. The only other thing there, you asked about the hybrid, what would it do? You would gain access to money within the city, and hopefully that would allow you to better allocate funds in all schools throughout the district. Now, that hybrid model, my understanding on that is funds in the city would have to be spent in the city.
Right.
So
That's only fair.
Yeah,
That-
and I
That's only
agree.
fair.
Yeah. Now, hopefully, if you're not having to use the whole pot of money and you have additional funds, well, now we can, instead of some of the funds that we've been using here, now we can earmark those back to the county schools and use the city funds to fund our city portion under the hybrid model. Obviously, a city-county split, that's a whole different animal. I think we're all in agreement, we would not want that unless it benefited both systems, and I think that's where we rely on this study is, if that ever came up, does it benefit both? Because if it don't benefit every kid in this county, I think our job is to, put it out there. that
So
we're
is
not-
the benefit of a hybrid that you don't have, you have one superintendent, you're not paying two salaries for superintendents, you're not paying two boards, you're not paying, I mean, we don't get paid, but you're not paying two curriculum instructors, so you share, is that so that's why we would think that would be over a city school system, because I'm wondering why we wouldn't just want to move to recommending a city school system.
You're wondering why we wouldn't say it again? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
why we wouldn't just say, let's look at a city school system.
Yeah, I think that's why we allow Criterion to study both options. The people we've talked to in Georgia, that is one positive that they mentioned. Now, when you're developing something that's never occurred, that's a good thing, because you can set it up in partnership with whoever's a partner. If Pine Level or Otago or Billingsley or Prattville wants to partner, that you're developing a program, you can work together on that. But the reality is you're talking about doing something that's never been done in the state. So that, but yes, to answer your question, you do have one point of contact. It would be basically how we operate now. My understanding is a lot of the hybrid systems that have been discussed or that are in existence, there's usually some kind of trade out with a board seat, an at-large board seat or something along those lines to give the funding entity more voice, so to speak. Now, that would be, if we're being frank, that would be tough with our current setup because several of you are already district for the city of Prattville. And if we're talking about a hybrid model with the city of Prattville, that would be a issue that we'd have to work out. But again, all those discussions are way down the line. I just want to commission the Criterion group to look at it, and they may come back and say, man, no, the best that y'all can be is what you are. And if that's the answer, we owe it to our people not to just be okay. We got to figure out what we got to do, and part of that's going to be what we've been discussing.
So if you have access to the money and it's going to Elmore County, that's, you said around-ish $5 million.
Yeah, I don't.
If
yeah, I
we
don't have
did this
access to
whole,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But then the tax referendum would have brought in about 7.
Yes, we were estimating 7.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, I think, and I really hesitated on bringing this to you guys today because I know what this is going to cause. It's going to be, oh, they're trying to split the system and all that. No. What we're trying to do is to be able to look our citizens in the county in the eyes and tell them exactly what we've been saying. We're going to turn over every rock and we're going to find every option. And if the options are no, okay, well, I interviewed on this and it was kind of a joke, a running joke, especially in CO. We're not going to take no for an answer. We're just going to take that as data and we're going to figure out some kind of other way. That's where these discussions have popped up is trying, again, but at the end of the day, we're trying to figure out something to give our teachers what they need, to give our principals what they need, our administrators, and to give our students better education. That's why we're here.
But at the end of the day, I mean, the facts are the facts, and 2/3 of our student population live inside the city limits of Prattville, with 1/3 living outside.
Yes, sir, roughly, yes, sir.
So, I mean, access to that tax dollar that's generated inside the city limit of Prattville should be something that everybody would want to benefit the education of the children inside the city limits of Prattville.
Yes, sir. Now, Mr. Dennis is probably ready to choke.
He doesn't work here.
But, but I'm saying on that, obviously, this is something I didn't say, and that's what I was going with when I said Mr. Dennis. If you're encompassing the city limits, then that also, and again, this is why it takes legislative approval and state approval and all these other things. In theory, you would also be looking at students in that part of Prattville. There's just so many variables then I'm not comfortable being able to give you definitive answers on some of that because, again, this is not in existence in Alabama. I want Criterion to look at it and be able to present to us, hopefully in March, a detailed, hey, this is what we came up with.
Okay, so they're aware of the hybrid systems in the state of Georgia?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That they would know how to fit into our situation?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We've discussed it.
Perfect.
Any other questions or comments?
Let's get them working.
All right, so I recommend approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Board members, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. May I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second?
I second.
I hate to ask this. Any discussions? All in favor, raise your right hand.
All right, thank you, board members. At this time, I recommend approval of the personnel report as presented.
Board members, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. May I get a motion to approve?
I make a motion.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? I do. I noticed that the high school coach was not on there. I think I know the answer to this, but I've gotten several calls about when we're going to hire our Prattville High School coach.
Talking about football?
Yes.
They are currently in the interview process. I've instructed Dr. Ferris and Coach Bourne, take your time, go through everything, vet every candidate. They are doing interviews. Our hope is to have somebody hired before Christmas. I know everybody's eager to find out who that person will be, but I want them to feel good about who they recommend to me, and then I will relay that pending those negotiations. So hopefully by Christmas.
So that means you would look at a special call meeting?
Yes, sir. I'm not opposed to if you guys are okay with that. If they find someone, say this week or next week, now it may mean we have to come in on Christmas break, which is perfectly fine. But if they get us a name, then I will contact you guys, and if y'all can meet, then we'll call a special meeting.
I thought you were going to say Christmas Day.
I love y'all, but I'm going to
All in favor of approving the personnel report? Raise your right hand.
All right, at this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Poe to come forward and provide us with the November 2024 bank and financial statements.
Ms. Thomas tells me I'm not loud enough every time, so I beg to differ, and so does everyone else that works with me. Okay, so November, this is our second month of the fiscal year of the 2025 fiscal year. At November, we should be around 17%, and as you can see in your snapshot analysis, that's exactly where we are with our revenues. Our expenditures are at 15%, so we are level spending. We're doing exactly what we need to do. We're looking at 15 million in revenue and 15.7 in expenditures. It's going to look a little lopsided, but we're well within our percentages. Keep in mind, some of those expenditures are related to funds that we received in the prior fiscal year to be expended in this fiscal year. Our fund balance for November ended at 50 million. Our payroll was at 6.8 million. In your local revenue analysis, you can see that our local revenue collected as of now, 3.4 million. You're going to start seeing an uptick in that because this is when the ad value, you'll see it slide back down after January. But as of November, we were at 3.4. November's collections alone were 2.9 million. And we use this to do our match with our foundation program, our capital program, and any bond debt that we don't fulfill with our debt monies. Any questions on November? All right, thank you.
As always, thank you, Ms. Poe. Appreciate what you and the department does. At this time, I recommend approval of the November bank and financial statements as presented.
Board members, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. May I get a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand.
All right, just 3 items on the superintendent report. First thing is just a simple map of, we were talking earlier about when Otago being a priority school, the anticipated memo, and again, I keep going back to that because I haven't seen it yet, but we do anticipate to get the memo from the state on things we have to do to be in accordance with state regulations. You got it, I'm sorry. One thing is we have to be able to explain to parents how we will provide transportation to a non-priority school. So this, can I zoom in? Yeah, no, that's great. This map is off our district map. Yeah. There you go. Hey, that's good. Stay behind the screen there and make it happen. Zoom away just a touch. All right, there you go. All right, so what this map is showing is the Otagoville zone, and I'm not really sure where this map came from. It's been in my office forever, since I was hired. But my understanding with talking to Mr. Messick, who's here, is a lot of the dots are a lot of the population centers of the Otagoville School District. So, and again, I'm not going to have a proposal for you tonight. I just want you to want to put this out there to you. What I would like to do is possibly, again, pending the receipt of this memo, I would probably like to put all this in a letter to our Otagoville families, allow them to pick what they would like to do. But you got three options. Option one, can you zone way away from it, or make it smaller real quick? I just want to show something real quick. I don't know, it may not. Is that as small as it gets, Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Okay, that's okay. For comparison, okay, well, that's good. Billingsley is,
Can we go back?
no, you're good, that's fine. Billingsley is up here up north. Prattville is about here, and again, that's not a great map to show you the proximity, but, all right, now zoom back in. What the three options we would have is, number one, everybody in the Otagoville zone would go north to Billingsley. That's option one. That will benefit some areas, like, and this is what I was talking about, you see the dots that are here, 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 and Fig Tree, which is here. You can hit a couple of the county roads and you will be at Billingsley pretty quick. The problem is, obviously, if I'm in Fig Tree, and, or excuse me, if I'm in, down here by Swift Creek, and I'm being told I gotta go all the way to Billingsley, that's gonna be an issue. The other option is families that wanna go to a non-priority school, everybody goes to Prattville. Well, again, our bus routes for Billingsley literally end right here by Fig Tree. Fig Tree to Prattville would be a haul. So what we are looking at, Mr. Messick and I have been sitting down looking at, is if you follow the population trend of our families, here's 14. So once you get to 33, anything that any residents that are above 33 would be zoned, not zoned, but would be allowed to go to Billingsley. Anybody below 33 would go to Prattville. Again, that kind of hits the geographical challenges that you have in a couple of areas. Again, this is for the memo that we have to do, okay? I lost my train of thought there. I saw Mr. Glover smile, or grinning.
We couldn't see anything.
Good to see. I know, I got it right there.
We just saw your backside.
You just read it in real time. I knew.
I got a question. Just,
Fire away. Yes,
I
sir.
mean, when we were talking on the academic side, one of the big things that we're hearing is the Otagoville size is one of the reasons. It's just the elementary, high school prefs, class sizes, split. Like, how many kids, if they take advantage and leave, obviously that's situating the issue that's already going to be at the school. Like, what do we do? I mean, that's, other than just having a school open, we're not.
Yeah, I think, I've said this in community meetings. I've spoken with a lot of the staff members at Otagoville. We've talked about this quite a bit. Mr. Eagle and I talked about it the other day. You know, if you have 5 students that decide to leave, okay, that's one discussion. If there's 30, 40, 50 that decide to leave, that's a totally different issue, because then again, now you're getting back into the fundamental issue out at Otagoville, which is enrollment and how that affects your units. This is not a Board of Education recommendation, you know, or this is not Lyman Whiffen. This is the State Department memo that we're going to have to put out to parents. And again, should be coming any day now. So to answer your question, if you have a lot of families that leave, then it's going to be a totally different conversation, because then you got to get into, is there enough resources there to keep the school open if a lot of people leave?
Well, I want to start for a second of, you know, and I'm a county guy. I mean, I've grown up with these Marbury, Billings, Otago, playing ball, but jotting down these scores throughout it. Again, we're doing a disservice, and I totally understand the secondary side because of the press and really the kids we cheat are the gifted, advanced kids out of Togville, because as a teacher, you're going to teach to the middle. If I've got honors and standard in the same classroom, supposedly I'm teaching it, I'm gonna teach. But it just surprises me to see the elementary scores where they're at, and to know that we've got a full-time math coach just for, through 5th grade, and we're seeing areas that there's not a single area that we're meeting state standard.
I think I have the same concern. I will go backwards from here. Okay, at the high school level, I fundamentally believe at the junior high and high school level, what keeps kids engaged is what are you doing extracurricular after school. I know I'm an old coach and I'm always going to say that, but you got to have something there that keeps kids engaged. The concerning part is, this past season, football season, there's a lot of kids in 10th, 11th, 12th grade for whatever reason did not finish the year. So I have concerns with, are those families going to leave once this comes up? Our numbers for our basketball teams are a little lower than what they've traditionally been, but then you get into the data, and again, remove the athletic side, you get into the data. I think this is an easier conversation if you see, hey, K through 6 are knocking it out of the park, but 7 through 12 are not. Well, I think you could rationalize, well, is it not at the secondary level because of everything we just said? The major issue is this: K through 12, when we're looking at the data does not match what's going on in other schools. That's just bottom line. And I'll say this too: I've received more calls and conversations in the last few days from families in Otago, and this is what has me in an absolute dilemma. I love going to Otago. I think Mr. Ziegler, anybody will tell you, I enjoy going out there. It's a great place. Really love the kids, man. They're awesome kids. But families now are starting to ask us, hey, I don't have the ability to take my kid elsewhere. When we did in-district transfer this past year, I want to say there was between 20 and 30 Otago kids that did leave. Their families, their parents did go to another school. I'm starting to get the calls about, I don't have that ability. I work in Dallas County. Why can't I choose? Well, again, they are going to have this choice next year because, again, it's state mandated, and I think we've got to put the ball in the court of the families in Otago and say, okay, what option would you choose if this occurs? But it does lead to some bigger questions that, we're all
Mr.
seeing.
Woodfin?
Yes, ma'am.
Even if the state didn't take over, I think we have to do something. Because you're going to have your families that have transportation, that are going to choose to move, and then you're going to have others that stay there, even if because I'm looking like math, 2nd grade, we had 19% proficient in 2nd grade. Then it lowered, went down to 7% in 3rd, went down to 8% in 4th, went down to 0% in 7th.
The biggest struggle I have on a moral dilemma is, are we preparing kids for life after school? And I would feel better long-term if the data, if you saw some, hey, this is where the growth is occurring, we're good, it's just we got to get them there for a few years. The trend right now is students are not on grade level on 1st grade, they're not on grade level 2nd grade, the curriculum never slows down, they're not on grade level 3rd grade. And then when they get to high school, we have not provided the education for them to have the skills they need in life after school. That is my moral dilemma. I think we all agree nobody wants to shut the school, and I know that's what we're kind of dancing around. But the reality too is, are we crippling kids for life with them not having the skills that they need? And I'm gonna say this too. Are we crippling our staff members in Otago? Because if the answer is send more units or send more money, as your superintendent, I'm telling you, there's no more units and no more money. we don't have anymore. I'm open for any other options, any other scenarios. We're constantly beating our head against the wall trying to figure it out. But the data shows a trend where from first grade to 12th grade, the kids are not on level. And then we didn't talk about this a whole lot earlier. The staffing is an issue because you've got 2 grades out there in Ottawa right now that they haven't had an English teacher in 2 years. Well, that's not fair to the kids because it's not fair to the staff and it's not fair to anybody. We have an issue with hiring people at Ottawa. I don't know why. It's a great school. It's a great place. Like, I think the location does impact hiring ability at Ottawa a little bit. You take Billingsley that's rural, you're going to see a lot of people from Chilton County with Clanton being right there by Billingsley. I think they had access to families to be able to hire a little easier than Ottawa. Ottawa's in a tough spot with who to hire. We've got positions out there that haven't been filled, and hopefully tonight we're going to fill one. Anyway, I know I kind of rambled on that question,
But Lyman, at some point, I mean, honestly, at some point, it becomes malpractice on our parts if we don't address this situation. And I've tried to be as gentle tonight as I could with hearing the numbers and this. But the sad part about it is, Lyman, these numbers have been the same year over year over year over year. And I don't know what to do from this seat to help the young people in a way that is going to be what they need. I don't know what to do.
Well, our job is to educate kids to give them the skills they need to be successful. And right now, the way that model is designed, we are, in my opinion, we're doing everything we possibly can to meet those needs. Class sizes are pretty small in a lot of the rooms. We have math coaches, we have reading coaches. The athletic component has thrown me off a little bit. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, that part that's always been strong, kids are not coming out like they used to. And again, there's probably a lot of different reasons for that. But you add it all up, it's very concerning with, are they getting the skills that they need to be successful? And I hear you guys loud and clear.
I'm just going to add one thing, sorry.
Yes.
And I think I wrote down, because I'm hearing that the answer is more resources, extracurricular activities, and specialized teachers. And if we can't give it with this current model, we've got to look at moving students to a better performing school that has those.
If you're asking me, will the students have more access to classes and resources at, say, Prattville, the answer is yes. We all know that because you have much more staff members, you have a wider curriculum. That is true. Even, Billingsley being a smaller school, yes, they have more units. So again, there's more access to what students need. The issue is not, it's not the kids, it's not the community, it's not the administration, it's not the teachers. The issue is we're funding students at Ottawa twice as much as we are anywhere else, and we have nothing left to do. That's the biggest issue. I don't think anybody in here wants to see any school closed, but we have to look at what we're doing and are we meeting the needs of the kids? That's the big question moving forward. The data shows that we have major problems K through 12 with our kids getting what they need in each one of those grade levels. Again, I don't want anybody watching tonight or anybody in attendance. That is not anything toward the staff, anything toward kids, anything toward the community. That's the data that you saw. The question is, how do you fix it? And again, I don't know the answer there when we're funding it much more than anywhere else.
While we have Mr. Messick here, back to your map and back to immediate, that we got to make plans for next year. How much does this cost us? I mean, I know it's going to depend on number of buses I get, but I mean, if we've got.
Are you talking about, I'm just going to be blunt here, you're talking about the schools still in existence?
Yes.
Okay, we won't know that data until we know exactly how many.
I'm talking about to provide transportation. If you just went on the families that I've heard
That
from,
choose.
that have called me, that represent 17 students. So if we put 17 students on a bus and we come to Prattville, or half of them have to go to Billingsley and the other half have to go to Prattville, what's that gonna cost them?
That cost is different if the 17 are here compared to if it's 3 at Fig Tree, 3 here. Does that make sense?
Right, yeah. So it's still an unknown.
It is until either A, we decide how that transportation is going to work, or B, we know exactly who's going where, and then you can figure the cost.
So since it's state mandated that we offer this, do we receive state funds for providing this?
I don't know that yet.
Okay.
I wouldn't think so, because funding's a year in
So it's an
arrears.
So then,
mandate.
so this is something, yeah, that's not funded that we've got to come up with
Right.
to provide.
I've done some digging in terms of how the district has in the past, because this has come up before. I'm getting two different answers. I've been told that we used to do a drop-off spot, I think it was beside Ken's deer processing. I don't know if that's true. Before Mr. Messick and I got here is what I'm talking about. We've heard that. Mr. Messick and I met the other day, and he said the last time this occurred, we did bus to the house of the student. At that time, there wasn't a lot of students that chose to do this. Like you said, I've received a lot of the same phone calls. I would be curious to see how that's going to go moving forward. Any other questions here, or?
So would you get, like, poll your school and see who would all choose to leave and then decide whether you're gonna redraw or draw the lines to Billingsley and Prattville, or would you go ahead and do that straight off? Like, would you wanna see how many people are gonna leave or how many people are gonna stay before your transportation lines?
I think we have two decisions. Number one, if we're going to stay with the same model, then we put it out there with the 3 plans. If we're looking more at consolidation, then you put out what you're going to do moving forward.
Okay.
Does that make sense what I'm saying? Or
I guess I got a concern of just like what we talked about earlier with Criterion, like looking at consolidations, that was all the way till March. It seems like that'd be very, very late. Is there something that we need to be looking at now?
I have not seen the memo, but what I've been told is the memo is going to say I have to have a transportation plan for Otagoville in January. I have not seen it. This is me calling SSA and others, hey, how do I handle this? That's what I've been told. Until I see the memo, I won't know the exact verbiage. Now, if we have to release a transportation plan to families in January, then that's going to up the timeline on deciding, do we keep it, do we not? Because that's going to alter what we do moving forward. Does that make sense? So,
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, if you go ahead and say, if you live past this point, you're going to Billingsley, and you live past this point, you're going to Prattville, when do you make that decision? I
Are we
mean,
talking about the school in existence or not?
I guess as of right now. I'm just
All right.
saying, if I live out in Fig Tree and you say I gotta go to Prattville, that makes my decision on whether I'm gonna stay or I'm gonna go.
Right.
Oh, that's true.
I would personally like to get this letter out to the families before Christmas break. Hey, this is, regardless of the direction of the school, this is going to occur one way or the other. Would you A, stay at Otagoville, B, choose to go to Billingsley, or C, go to Prattville? And then judge from there. I mean, if 3 kids up here are going to go to Billingsley, but everybody here wants to go to Prattville, that alters what you're going to do. If, I'm talking about just the transportation route. If there's 8 kids in all of Otagoville that wants to go to a different school, well, we can't run 1 bus for Billingsley and 1 bus for Prattville. We don't have the funds for it. We would run 1 bus that would encompass the whole county. Is that,
A lot of time on a bus.
yeah,
Right, yeah, that's a lot of time on a bus. So if you have a 3rd grader, how long would they be on the bus?
right, right,
How long?
yeah.
Did you say
But
43?
again,
43 minutes one way?
I mean,
What other
I
choice
will
do you have?
yeah, I mean, I will prepare that. Mr. Messick and I have been working on it. As soon as we get this memo, I will add it to you guys on how some options should look. If the decision's going to be made or discussed about the future of the school, obviously, that would have to come, in my opinion, January, February, March, no later, well, I'll say no later than February.
I think we got to look at that, Mr. Wilson. I mean, again, I think you got to look at, for our kids, or are we just doing something because it's what's always been there and you know, we're just going to continue, not saying something happened, but again, we're here for kids. Are we doing what's right?
So
Or
you
not?
say if you got like 8 kids in a Tagoville that say, hey, we want to go somewhere else, but everybody else wants to stay, you're still doing a disservice to those kids that want, I mean, we're still not being able to.
Well, I mean, you saw the scores tonight.
Right.
I think
You're still not doing what's right by those kids.
Understood.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is something that you have to almost immediately get this out to the families. I mean, you have to get this out to the families that are affected and let them have their chance to process it, speak, and, you know.
Okay. All right. Anything else on that? All right. The only other 2 things on my report, Prattville Kindergarten School, we're getting ready to release that. We ran into an issue with the road that's been constructed at J Street. Long story short, I got a meeting Thursday where I hope to get some resolution on that. If we can get the issue resolved on Thursday, then we can put out how we're going to transition the move to PKS. If I do not get a resolution by Thursday, then I would say the move is probably going to happen after what we originally anticipated. Right now, if we can get this resolved on Thursday and get information out to our families before Christmas break, we were planning on 7 days to be virtual to allow for the move. That would be 7 days after Christmas. But again, I know this sounds like a broken record, but guys, that's new construction. You're going to have some issues that pop up. The school passed inspection. The school is ready to open. The issue is with the road. So with the amount of traffic that's going to be there, there's nothing wrong with the road. We just got to get with the landowners around and try to fix the issue that we have. So have that meeting on Thursday, hoping to get it resolved, and then I'll be able to, if it's resolved, you will see us post it immediately. Hey, this is the plan. And again, we told our families that's been calling, we're looking at probably 7 days of virtual after Christmas break. Originally, we were thinking 10. If we can do it during this time, there's a couple days of in-service that we can do. We know that this is going to put a burden on our families to find daycare. That's why I really want to be able to release it. But again, we can't officially say all of this until we get the issue at J Street fixed. Last thing, I know at the last board meeting, I told you guys I would bring a proposal for pre-K. At this time, I do not think we need to cut pre-K because we were looking at that for space for school consolidation. However, like I said earlier, I do have serious concerns also with the enrollment pattern in Prattville Primary, Prattville Elementary, and Prattville Intermediate. The funding for pre-K as well, we did get a little more funding this past year than what we were expecting. So the funding is not really the issue at the moment with pre-K. Moving in next year, it's going to be space. I believe we have 10 classrooms around the county. Specifically in town, we have 4 or 3 or 4, 5. I'm seeing different numbers, sorry. That don't sound like a lot, but right now, yes, I will go ahead and get this out of the way. The numbers are very close to where you could consolidate Prattville Primary School as well. The reality is that would be a max capacity at the new kindergarten with an overflow into more than likely Daniel Pratt. If we saw 30 kids return back with those numbers, we would be in we'd be in bad shape. So I'm not advocating that at the moment, but if we see Prattville Primary with the same numbers that we've seen the last couple of years where they're losing 50 to 100 kids, we will be at this time next year talking about consolidating Prattville Primary School. The intermediate and elementary school have kind of stabilized some, but again, if you're looking at that at the Prattville Primary School, it's just a few years before those numbers will get to those other schools, and it's just a cycle that's going to continue. Let's see. I know this has been a long meeting. That's about all I got on my end. Do y'all have questions on any of that I've covered? All right, well, at this time, I do recommend entering into executive session for approximately 30 minutes under good name and character and to discuss pending litigation and imminently likely litigation. No votes will be taken.
Board members, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. May I get a motion to approve?
Make a motion to enter into executive session.
A second?
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. Okay, we will return in 30 minutes.
Set a timer.